Hello, guys. Hope you guys are doing good. Welcome back to another session with Make with HackVerse. Today, topic is your first desktop application using Java and MySQL. A bit about HackVerse. HackVerse 2.0 is a nationwide hackathon and is a platform to help individuals come up with innovative solutions to complex real-life problems. HackVerse 2.0 is being conducted on 27th and 28th of February this year, which is this coming weekend. Registrations for this has unfortunately closed. We have sent out mails to all the selected candidates, and do check your mails if you had registered. If you did not receive the mail, do not be disheartened. Keep working on your skill, and we hope to see you next year. Do follow us on Instagram and all our channels, link for which is provided in the description for more updates. To those who did receive the mail, congratulations. Please RSVP at the earliest so we can proceed with further we can proceed further and provide you with the further informations. Also, do join our Discord channel for any and every update of the hackathon. Acknowledge the code of conduct in the rules section to be eligible to interact with the team and all the other participants. Feel free to put any queries in the help desk where we are happy to help you. You can also put up your queries in the Telegram channel, for which the link is also provided in the description. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Manas Trivedi for the session. His interests lie in application development and database systems. He has been building Java desktops since 2017. Manas will be interning at Oracle this summer, which is the firm which developed all the previous versions of NetBeans IDE and currently owns the Java SE implementation, and also the MySQL relation database management system, all three of which are going to be used in today's session. He is also an active part of our technical team and the student relations team. With this, I'm happy to welcome. Over to you, happy to welcome Manas. Over to you, Manas.
Thanks, Prakriti, and welcome everyone to this session. So today, what we are going to build is a desktop application using Java and MySQL. So looking at what's called the tech stack. So what we're going to be using is something called Java Swing for the front end, plain Java for the program logic, and the MySQL relational database management system for the database. And to write the code, to build the user interface and to write the Java code, we'll be using the NetBeans IDE, which is a rapid application development tool, which enables us to create, let's say, a prototype. So let's say you want to make a website and create a prototype for it for the client in, let's say, a day. So you won't sit down and make an entire website in one day to show to the client. Rather, you would create a prototype. So the NetBeans IDE is this an amazing tool which allows you to develop apps rather quickly, and you can use it to create apps on the fly for as a prototype. So yeah, let's get started with one of the components. So we'll now create the database of the app. So what we are going to be creating is what do you say, a login app where we'll have users signing up and logging in. So let's start off with creating the database. So we'll use the MySQL command line client. I hope you all have followed the instructions doc which I have shared before, and if in case you haven't followed, then it's there in the description, so you can follow that. So yeah, let's open the MySQL command line client. So the first thing it asks us to do is it asks us to enter the root password. So let's do that. 1234 is my root password, so I'll enter that. And here we are on the MySQL monitor, where we'll create the database. So the database which we are going to create is going to be called the test database. So the way you do that is you write this command, create database test followed by semicolon, and then you hit enter. Now the thing is that I've already created the database, so I won't be hitting enter, but this is what you have to do. So once you have created the database, we will use that database, because let's say you want to create tables in a database. So yeah, we have to tell MySQL that, hey, we are going to use the test database right now, and we'll progress from there. So let's write the command use test semicolon and hit enter. So now we have entered the test database. Okay, so what is a database anyway? So a database in MySQL is in some sense just a collection of tables. So yeah, that's essentially it. In some sense, for a beginner, I think that's what we can say. So now in the test database, what we are going to do is we are going to create a table. Now what table? We are going to create a user table. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to sign up users and login users. So that's the app we're building, a sign up login application. So to sign up and login users, we need a user table. And what will this user table have? This user table will have the user ID of the user, the password of the user, and a few other fields. So let's have like one field as the name of the user. So let's go ahead with that. Let's create a table here for the user. So this is how we do it. We write this create table user. And then after this, we are going to tell MySQL that these are the fields which are going to be present in the user table. So let's go ahead and write the fields. So these fields will appear in like in brackets. So let's have a look at that. So the first field is the username field. So let's create that username. And the kind of data which will go into this username field is the a string type or a character type. So in MySQL we call that as we either call it as like char, or we can go for something called varchar. So what char is that it specifies that let's say I write username char 50, and I'm telling MySQL that all users names must have a size of 50. But then if the username is smaller than 50, then you add spaces, and if the username is bigger than 50, then I believe you give an error or something of that sort. So the thing is that we don't want all those restrictions. We just want to tell MySQL that you create something called a varchar 50, let's say. So what is varchar? Varchar is basically a variable character. So you can have one character, you can have two characters, you can have as many characters as you write in this username field. So let's go ahead, and so that's the first column. So the user table, it has three columns: username, password, and the name. So let's go ahead and create the second column now. So the second column is password. So that password varchar 50. And the third column is the name column. So let's do that. Name varchar 50, and I'm keeping varchar 50 for all three of them because all three of them are use strings. Are of the string type. And notice that I have used commas to separate the columns. So that's something. And we'll end this with a closing brace. So these three columns inside parentheses, and let's put a semicolon at the end and hit enter. So a user table is created which has these three columns: the username, the password, and the name, having these data types. So if I wanted to see what this table looks like, what I'd do is I'd enter this command, describe, or just DSC user, and put a semicolon and hit enter. And so MySQL tells me that, hey, so for the user table, these are the fields, the username, the password, the name, and these are the data types. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and let's go ahead and insert one row into this user table to just get an idea of how that's done. So the way we'll do that is pretty simple, because MySQL, in my opinion, is a very English kind of a language in some sense. So have a look at this. This is how you enter a value into a MySQL table. Insert into user values. So let's enter my username, and let's enter ABCD as a password, and name, I'll keep my name in here. Now let's just go through this. So insert into the user table these values, which are, this first value is the username, the second value is the password, and the third value is the name. And all three of them have been put inside single quotes, which denotes that they are, of the kind string, or, a bunch of characters. So yeah, now let's hit enter to insert these values into the table. So when I hit enter, there you go, query okay, one row affected. So this has been entered into the table. Now, if I wanted to see what my table looks like, so instead of describing the structure of the table, which I've done here, what if I wanted to see what's inside the table right now? So the way we do that is we perform a little MySQL query. So it's done in this manner. Select star from user. So what's this? This says that you select all the data from the user table, which is plain English in some sense. So that's what we're doing. We want to see all the data inside the user. So this is the query which we'll write. And now I'll hit enter, and hopefully here's a table. So we have these column headings, username, password, and name. And these are this is the first row, which I just entered a while ago. So yeah, this is how MySQL works not in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more things, but yeah, this is what we need to know at the minute, how MySQL works. So yeah, we have created the table here. This is the important thing. We have created the table. And now we can go ahead and create the rest of the application, which will involve creating the user interface and writing the Java code. So now let's go to the NetBeans ID, open the NetBeans ID. So yeah, for NetBeans as well, I have given the download instructions you can check them out in the description. So upon opening the NetBeans ID, the first thing, what we'll do now is we'll create a new Java project. So let's go to file. Let's go to new project. And now we have Java and we have Java application. So this is what we want to create, Java application. So now let's click next, because this is what we want to create, a Java application. Let's click next and let's give this project a name. So now since this is a simple login app, so let's call it that, a simple login app. That looks good. Ensure that both of these are unticked. We don't want to create a main class immediately at the minute. We just need to create this project name and click finish. So this creates this project node up here in the projects tab. And now let's begin adding a frame to our project. So a Java application contains frames. So there is like a landing frame, then maybe we'll go to a sign up frame, a login frame, a dashboard, stuff like that. So let's start by creating a frame. So right click source packages under your project node, go to new and go to JFrame form. So upon clicking that, we get this little box where we have to set the class name. So let's since we are creating, this JFrame form is essentially the graphical user interface of our app. So let's just call it that. Let's call it the simple login app GUI. Also ensure that there are no spaces in this class name, because the class name is a variable, and as you might be already knowing, variables in Java or even in Python or C++ or any other language for that matter usually don't allow spaces. So we don't need spaces here. So simple login app GUI. And now let's continue. Let's click finish. And here we are. We have now an empty frame for our project. So now let's begin designing the GUI. So on the landing page, if we look at general landing pages, what we usually have is we have this little, maybe like a welcome message and two buttons on the top, one saying sign up, the other saying login. So let's do something of that sort. So pick up a label from here. So what a label, so yeah, I think I should explain what this entire window is first. So this is a palette window. And what the palette window has is, it has, it's pretty self-evident. You have the labels, you have buttons, you have combo boxes, you have radio buttons, you have a number of things. You have checkboxes, all of the UI components that you would usually see on, websites or applications or general software. So So yeah, the palette window is pretty important, and one of the reasons I'm using NetBeans IDE is because it has this palette window. So yeah, so let's start by designing the frame. So let's bring a label from here, and the way we bring a label is we press and hold a label and drag it across to the screen to the frame and drop it right there. So now we have a label on the screen, and the label, as you all can see, it's called JLabel1 at the minute. And now what we want to do is we want to make this label, show a welcome message. So we need to edit this text inside this label. We don't want JLabel1. So there are a few ways of doing that. The first way is we could either, let's look at the first way. The first way would be to right click the label. So right click the label and go to the properties of this label. So we have this properties down here, click the properties. And yeah, check this out, all these amazing properties. So you can change the background of the label, you can change the font of the label, you can change the foreground, like the color of the text of the label. And here, the actual text of the label. So right now, the label displays JLabel1. What we wanted to display is, a welcome message. So let's type in a little welcome message. So I'm going to click that, and I'll click backspace, and let's type in a little welcome to the simple, what's this? The simple login app, exclamation mark. So yeah, so that's the text for this label, and hit enter to see the changes. So welcome to the simple login app. We have the changes made, and let's close this properties window. Or you know what, instead of that, I'll also change the font. Let's change the font. So there's this little ellipsis over here. I hope you all can see this little small little square on the right side. So click that to change the property. So we'll click this, and we have all these options. So let's go for, let's say, I don't know, Calibri, and plain is fine. And let's go for a nice large font, 24. Okay. This looks good. So yeah, I think we're done with the properties of this label. It looks rather nice. It's nicely welcoming us to the app. Now let's click the close button and bring this a little to the left side. Yeah, that looks about nice. So that's a label on the screen. Now let's put the sign up and the login button. So we need those buttons up here, because usually you see them on the top right of the screen. So let's bring in a button. So this button, let's drag this button all the way to the screen right there. And that's beautiful. So that's J button 1. And yeah, we need to change the text of this button, because right now it's saying J button 1. So let's change the text by using either the properties. We could go ahead, go to the properties and change it here, or the other way, which I kind of forgot to mention in the label. The other way would be to just hit the space bar. Like select the button and click the space bar. And when we do that, we can change the text of the button. So yeah, this is going to say sign up. So let's put that in, sign up, and hit enter. So now that's a sign up button. So position this a little bit, and that's looking amazing. Now let's bring in another button, which is going to say login. So let's bring this here and change the text of this. I'll hit spacebar and enter login, and then hit enter. Wonderful. So we now have a sign up button, a login button in the, what one may call the navbar, I think, but I don't think we have that in Java applications. I hope I'm not wrong. But yeah, so yeah, we have the sign up, the login button, and we have this little label welcoming us to the application. So at this point, let's just run and see what it looks like. So save this application by hitting Control S, or you could equivalently go to File and click Save. So let's just do that. And go to Run, go to this Run tab, and go to Run File. And yeah, let's click that. And this is what it's looking like, a little window, this little applet kind of a thing, where we could click the sign up button or the login button, both of which don't work yet. So we'll make them work in a bit. So okay, so now what the sign up button should do is it should get rid of this this initial frame, and it should take us to the sign up frame. So there should be another frame. We don't have other frames yet. So let's add a frame. So now this palette, again, this useful little palette window, let's search for a frame here. As you can see, we have the swing windows, and under that we have frame. So let's drag a frame. Oh, and by the way, just dragging a component and putting it onto the frame, this is what's called drag and drop GUI creation. That's like a really famous term, I think. So, I mean, that's what we're doing here. So let's drag a frame, let's click it, drag it across, and release onto the frame. And check this out in the navigator window. Oh, and what's this navigator window? The navigator window is a place where you can you can expand things here and check out what's there in your entire application. All the components of the application are present in this the navigator window. So right now on the J frame, this first frame, we have J label 1, which is this label. We have J button 1, which is this button. We have J button 2, which is this button. So, that's what the navigator window is used for like checking out to like quickly go to some component of the application. So, okay. So now we need to go to this frame. So when I click the sign up button, I should get rid of this frame and I should go to the sign up frame. So first of all, let's rename this frame. Right now it's called JFrame1. So I don't like that. We'd rather call it the sign up frame. So the way we do that is we'll right click JFrame1 and we will not go to the properties here because in properties, what one can do is one can maybe change like different properties, like what should happen when I close the frame, or what should happen when I what do you say? There are multiple things here. You can say, I think you can change the background and perhaps change the font for the entire frame, stuff like that. So we won't be using the properties window to change JFrame1. What we want to do is we need to change the variable name. So there's a difference between what's there, the actual text of a component and the variable name of a component. So if we want to see the text of this component, so we'll right click and go to properties, and here we have the text. But the variable name of this thing is still JLabel1. That hasn't changed. So what I want to do right now is I want to change the variable name of this sign up frame, because when I write code for the sign up button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the sign up, the code for the sign up button will look something along the lines of get rid of this frame and go to the sign up frame. So in code, I'll have to mention, the sign up frame. So I need to change the name of this JFrame1 to sign up frame. So let's do that. Right click the JFrame1, go to change variable name and rename the frame. So right now it's JFrame1, let's call it the sign up frame. So sign up frame. And I'm following camel case here because that's what we do in Java all the time. Camel case variable names and things like that. In Python, I guess you have underscore separated variable names in some sense. But in Java, I think it's a convention to follow camel case variable names and function names and stuff like that. Okay. So, let's click OK because we are happy with the variable name of the sign up frame. And so that's the sign up frame. Now we also need a login frame because when I click the login button, I should go to the login frame. So let's add a frame. Drag a frame across the screen onto the frame, release, and we have another frame here, JFrame1. Let's edit the variable name of this frame because we don't want it to be called JFrame1. So I right clicked it, go to change variable name. And here we have JFrame1. So I don't want that. What I want is login frame. Awesome. So let's click OK. And now we have these two frames, sign up frame and login frame. And now when I log in, so like when in any application or on any other website, when you actually log in, usually you're taken to some sort of a dashboard or some sort of a, dashboard is perhaps an accurate name. So we also need a dashboard frame. So let's add a dashboard frame. So again, we need another frame. Let's pick up a frame, drag it across, put it here. There we have another JFrame1. Let's change the variable name of this, right click, go to change variable name, click that and rename. It's going to be called dashboard. Oh my God, dashboard. Yeah, that looks nice. Click OK. And we have these three frames, sign up frame, the login frame, and the dashboard. and that's amazing. So now, yeah, let's continue with the designing of the UI. We'll look at the code after we've completed the user interface. So let's start off with designing the sign up frame now. So to go to the sign up frame, right click the sign up frame and go to design this container, this little option right here, design this container. So when we click that, we go to the sign up frame. So this is what the sign up frame looks like. So if I want to go back to the J frame, the first frame, the landing page in some sense, if I want to go back there, I'll just right click it and click design this container, and I'll go back to the initial frame. So yeah, let's go back to the sign up frame. Right click the sign up frame and go to design this container. And now let's design the sign up frame. So now on the sign up frame, what will we have? We'll ask the user to enter certain data. And what are we going to ask the user? We're going to ask the user for the username, the password, and the name. So these are the exact three rows which we need to ask the user for at the minute. So, I hope it makes sense because we are creating an account. So for creating an account, we need these three fields to create the account, because what will an account look like? An account would look like this: the username, the password, and the name. So we need to ask the user for this. So let's do that. Let's ask the user. Now, what we'll do is we'll put a label here and an associated text field over here. So let's say I want to ask the user for his or her username. I'll put a label here saying enter your username, and in front of that I'll put a text field. So let's see how that looks like. So I'll bring a label here, put it right there, and edit the text. And to edit the text, I won't right click and go to properties. Instead, I'll just hit the space bar and backspace and username. That will tell the user that the following thing is required, will take in the username as the input. So yeah, we have the username there, and in front of that we need a text field. So let's bring a text field. So inside swing controls, we have the text field. Let's drag a text field onto the frame right there and elongate it a bit maybe. And yeah, that looks nice, but we don't want a filled up text field. We'd rather have an empty text field. So hit spacebar again as usual, as we have done for all other components. When we want to change the text inside the component, just hit the spacebar and hit backspace and hit enter. So that's the username text field. So here the user will input the username. Let's bring another label right there, and this is for the password. So this is where the user will enter the password. Nice. And we can't really enter a password in a text field, because then obviously the people behind the user will be able to see their password, and that's not a good idea. So Java provides us, or rather the NetBeans IDE provides us with a dedicated password field, which is amazing. So let's bring in a password field and put it right there, and stretch it out a little bit, and let's get rid of this, the text inside the password field by hitting spacebar, backspace, and enter. Amazing. So yeah, that's the username and the password. The last field which we need to ask the user for is the name. If you all remember, we have the username, the password, and the name. So let's ask the user for the name. So for that, let's bring in yet another label right there. Change the text to name. I hope you all don't mind if I do it a little quickly because we're running out of time. So yeah, the name and text field in front of it. And let's get rid of the text inside the text field, hit backspace, enter, and that looks amazing. So, although yeah, you might argue that yeah, that's probably not looking as amazing as websites, but yeah, one can sit down and change properties here and there, change the text size, change the maybe what do you say, increase the size of the frame to like cover the entire window, or should I say the entire screen of let's say a laptop. So all of that could be done, but since this is just an introductory session, so we won't get much into the look good design aspect thing of this application. So yeah, we just need to make this work. So we have the username, the password, and the name. And now we obviously need a sign up button. So let's bring in a button, drag it up across, put it right there. Let's change the text of this button to sign up. What I did there is I hit spacebar, backspace, and then I typed it in, and now I'm going to hit enter, and there we are. So this frame is done. The sign up frame is looking good, I think. So when a user signs up, what should happen is a record should be created. So MySQL should be updated. So an extra row here, like the second row will appear here with the entered fields. And we should ideally go back to the, I mean, we could either go to the dashboard or we could also go to back to the home page, like the landing page. So in this application, let's just go back to the landing page. So we'll write code for that in a bit. Right now, let's quickly complete the remaining design aspects of this application. So let's now design the login frame. So I'm right clicking it. We'll design this container. And here we are. This is the login frame. Let's quickly design this. So obviously, it'll look pretty similar to the sign up frame, honestly, because if you look at the sign up frame, it has username, password, and name. So all of that is required for signing up. But when you're logging in, you just need two of these fields. You just need the username and the password, honestly. So, so we'll have these. So we'll have only these two fields on the login frame. So let's design that. Go to login, right click, and design this container. And let's do what we intend to do. Let's put a label. This is going to say username and a text field associated with it. Drag a text field right there, elongate it a bit, hit spacebar, backspace, enter. Beautiful. Now let's put another label which says password, spacebar, backspace, password, and hit enter. Okay, now let's get a password field right there, elongate it a bit to like match. And how nice is this? How NetBeans actually tells me that you're right there. So thankfully so we're using a little thing called what's it called? Do we have that here? I think it's there in the properties. Something called the what is it called? Give me a second here. Yeah, so it's the layout. So you can have different kinds of layouts for the frame. So right now we have free design, and free design sounds like it would freely allow us to design, but yeah, free design actually allows you, provides this little thing of auto adjustment, like it tells you that you've reached a nice border, so you might want to stop here. So something of that sort. So that's what free design does. There are these other layouts which you could also follow. I usually prefer free design, but sometimes if I want more power in some sense, then I think I believe I go for the absolute layout. But yeah, let's continue with the free design. So yeah, we have the username, we have the password. Okay, let's clear up this password field, hit enter, and there you go. And we need a button here to log in, actually. So let's bring in a button, place it right there. And this button is going to say login. So spacebar, backspace, and login. That's the login frame. Maybe it would be a good idea to shift all of this down a bit. It feels like it's going a little to the top left. So what I'll do is I'll select all of this by like dragging my cursor across the screen like this. So this will select all components, and then I can move them around. So I'll just move them to like maybe here. Looks about okay. So yeah, that's how you move around components. If you want to move around a lot of components in the same at the same time. So yeah, this frame is done, and now to the dashboard. I don't think we need much on the dashboard, but let's just add something over there anyway. Let's go to the dashboard and design this container, and I'll just put a little hello, I think, or yeah. Okay, so this will signify that we have entered the application successfully. So, oh my, okay, let's go back to the dashboard. So there's a dashboard. This is where we will reach once we have logged in. So yeah, now let's, so the design aspect is done. Now let's begin with the actual code. Let's start writing the code. And now we'll be writing code for the buttons. So let's have a look at the JFrame now. So there's the sign up button and there's this login button. So we need to write code for the sign up button. And what code will we be writing? when we click the sign up button, what we're going to do is we are going to get rid of this frame. We're going to get rid of this landing page, and we are going to go to the sign up frame, this frame right here. So let's write code. And now there are again two ways, like the way we edited the text of this label. In the same manner, we have two ways of writing code for this button. Like one way is you could right click and go to events and go to action and go to action performed. So what action performed means is that, I mean, when you click a button, you're essentially performing an action on that button. You're performing an action. So that's what this action performed means. Like when you click the button. So there are other events as well. I mean, you can see all these, like let's say the button gained focus. So you might have noticed, like, I mean, when you click a tab button on some website, then you have focus going from, like the focus goes from one component to the other. Like let's say I'm on the sign up frame. So if I'm here and if I want to go to the next field, so what I do is I'd click tab. So what happens is this text field loses focus and the password field gains focus. So that was maybe a little out of the scope, but anyway, so that's what focus is. If you, I mean, you could try that sometime if you want, like to write code for like when the button receives focus. And there are other events as well. Like let's say mouse clicked, mouse entered. So if you want to write some code which should happen when a mouse enters the button, then you could write code here. But anyway, action performed. Let's write code for that. Events action performed. Let's click that, and we go to the source area. So we were till now we were in the design area. So in the design area we were constructing the design, the UI, and all that. And in the source area, in the source window, this is where we write the the actual program code. So let's start with the code. So yeah, for the sign up button, right click, events action performed. So this will lead us to here, private void j button one action performed. So what this means is that whatever lies in between these curly braces, that code will be run. So this is where we write the code for the button. The other way of going to this very place is just by double clicking the button. So if I wanted to write code for the sign up button, I could just double click it and I'd reach here. And now at this point, I should mention that the code for this application is available on GitHub, and the link for the same is in the description below. So you can check that out if, in case you maybe don't want to like type alongside. I mean, if it's getting a little quick in some sense, so you can refer the code in the GitHub repository, which is in the link below. So let's start writing the code. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of this frame and go to the sign up frame. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is write the code first and then I'll explain. So give me a second here. Sign up frame dot set visible false or rather true. What's going on here? We're writing this this little line called this dot dispose. Now what on earth? So what this means, I mean, what the word this means is, I mean, it refers in this context, it refers to the JFrame, the landing page. That's what this means here. And for people who know object-oriented programming, that I mean, they usually, I mean, what this actually means is that what the word this actually means is, the current object in some sense. So I mean, in this code file, the current object at all times is going to be the first frame, the J frame, the landing page. So just as a rule of thumb, as convention, just if you all don't know what object-oriented programming is, just wrap your head around the fact that this, I mean the word this, or rather the variable this, refers to the J frame or the landing page. Okay, so I hope this these two lines of code make sense. This dot dispose means that we'll get rid of the first frame, and sign up frame dot set visible true is going to make the sign up frame visible, because I hope it's clear that you set visible true. What does that mean? Make the visibility property of the frame true. So make it visible. So that's what's going on here. So I hope that makes sense. And let's go to the login button now. So we need to write similar code for the login button. So when I click the login button, I should get rid of the this frame and I should go to the login frame. So let's write code. So I'm going to double click the login button. So double click. For some reason, that bean scrolls all the way to the bottom, but yeah, let's just find where the cursor is blinking. So the cursor is blinking right here. So this is where we need to write the code. So let's write the code. This dot dispose. And if I'm quick, I mean, like if if I'm typing too quickly, and I mean, if you all are, as I said before, please refer the code in the repository, which is there in the link in the description, in case you all, I mean, if it's getting a little difficult typing. So, okay. Set visible true. This is basically the same as what we were doing up here, except for the fact that we are now going to make the login frame visible when we click the login button. Okay, so this is all well and good. Now let's, this code should work. So let's save the file. So I'm going to go to file and save, or equivalently you could do Control S, and now let's run. So go to run file, and let's see. So welcome to the simple login app. Let's sign up. So yeah, there's this little, the sign up frame opened up a little small, as you all can see. I mean, it is there. It is indeed there. But yeah, we have to resize it. And now why this is happening is because we haven't set an important property of frames. So let's do that right now. Instead of writing code, let's go to the, the properties of these frames. So we have the sign up frame, we have the login frame, and we have the dashboard. So collectively, we need to set some properties. So what we need to do is we need to tell the NetBeans ID, or we should, or instead we need to set the minimum size of these three frames, because right now the frames are opening up with 0 size, which is amazing. We don't want that. So let's do that. Let's change the properties for all three frames together. So if I wanted to just change the property for the sign up frame, I'll just right click it and go to properties. But I don't want to do that. I want to rather change the properties for all three frames at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the other two frames as well, just by control clicking. So yeah, now all three of them are selected. So all I did is I just, pressed control and then clicked. So that, selects other frames as well. What's going on here? Okay. So, oh yeah, so all three are now selected, and let's now go to the properties of all three at the same time. So right click any of these, right click and go to properties. So now it's going to allow us to change the properties of multiple objects. So now let's change some properties. So the first property we are going to change is the minimum size, because they're opening up with 0 size. So let's find the minimum size property, and it's right there. Minimum size is at the moment 0, 0. So let's set it to something which makes sense, something like 500, 400. That should be ideal. I mean, we'll test it out later on. So now that's the minimum size, and let's hit enter to make the changes permanent in some sense. So click enter, and okay, so the minimum size is now set. There's another important property which we need to change for all three frames, and that is the property on the top. That's a default close operation. So when we click the cross button, what I want to do is, what we should ideally do, or one could have different opinions, but yeah, I usually believe in exit on close. So when I close, the application, when I hit the cross button on any frame, the entire application should stop instead of hiding. Hiding doesn't stop the application. It just removes the frame from sight. And that's something we don't want. We want the entire application to close. So we'll have exit on close as the default close operation. And I believe the changes are made, and now we can close. So the properties would be reflected in all three at this point. Let's save and just click Ctrl S and run file. Now let's see if the sign up frame has a decent size, and it does. So yeah, that works. And so the code for these two buttons is done. We need to write code for two more buttons. One is for the sign up button on the sign up frame, and one is for the login button on the login frame. So let's quickly do that. So let's go to the sign up frame first of all. Go right click and go to design this container, and let's write code for this button. So we'll double click to write code for this button. So double click, and why is that been scrolling down? Let's double click it again. I think brings us to the right place, and there we are at the right place. So this is very right code. Also, right now these buttons are called JButton1, JButton2, and JButton3. So you can change them to be to like something like sign up button action performed. So the way you'll do that is you'll right click and change the variable name. But I'm not doing all of that right now since we're short on time. So let's run through this button. So yeah, what will this button do? It's going to sign up. And how is it going to sign up? It's going to take the values inputted into these three fields. It's going to extract them, and then it's going to send it to MySQL. Okay. And then it should ideally become available here. It should start being shown into the table. So if I were to run a select star, it should start showing me another row. So let's start writing code for that. So yeah, the first thing which we had to do is we need to extract the username. So the way we do that is also, what is this username? This text field. This text field is called jtextfield1, and also like you can see what is going on in this this little window over here, the navigator window. So when I'm clicking a component, the corresponding name of, the variable name of that component gets highlighted in the navigator window, which is, amazing. So I don't really need to go to, like right click and change variable name to see the variable name. I could just click the component and see the variable name. Like what is it called? So this one is called jtextfield1. So what we need to do is we need to get the text from the text field and use it later on to and send it to MySQL later on. So yeah, let's do that. Let's first of all get the text from the text field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write jtextfield1.getText in brackets and a semicolon. So what this does is it gets the text from the text field, from the jtextfield1, which is this text field, and it returns that value. Like you have something like, I don't know, int a is equal to b plus c. So what happens is b plus c is calculated and that's put into a. So b plus c returns the value of b plus c. So in a similar sense, getText is going to return, it's going to extract the text from the text field and return that string. And now we need to store that string. So we'll create a string variable. So string username is equal to getTextfield1.getText. I hope this line makes sense. So we're getting the text from the text field and putting it into a string variable called username. And string, what is string? String is basically a list of characters, or an array of characters, or not an array of characters. That's a different idea, but what's a string? A string is something like, hello, this is a string. So a line of characters, I guess. So that's what a string is. So we put the text from the text field into this username and username variable. And let's do the same for the password and the name quickly. So string password is equal to j password field dot get password. Now the thing is that password fields don't really have a get text. They do, but it's deprecated and all that. So we'll use something called the get password. And now that the next thing which we are going to do is a little thing which I prefer memorizing for new people, but this is what we're going to do. Password field 1. So password field 1.get password returns an array of characters, which is very different from a string. It returns an array of characters, and we pass those array of characters to a string constructor, which constructs a string object using those characters, and then that is returned and put into the string password, into this password variable. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry. This is again a bit of object-oriented programming, I guess. But yeah, this is how you get passwords from a password field. So it helps to memorize this line, new string, and then in parentheses you put all of this password field 1.get password. So yeah, we now have the password. Now let's quickly get the name as well. The string name is equal to text field 2.get text. We now also have the name, and yeah, this is JText field 2, as you all can see. It's highlighted here, JText field 2. And now we have the name. And now what we need to do is we need to send these three to MySQL. And now, yeah, that's a bit of a, let's see how that's done. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to establish a connection with MySQL. So give me a second. Yeah. So how this works is that you have a Java application on, let's say, the left side, and then there's a little bridge in the middle, and then there's a MySQL database on the right side. So the Java application is going to connect to MySQL using a little bridge. The little bridge is something which we'll see shortly. And I mean, it's going to initiate a connection. And if MySQL accepts that connection, the connection will get established, and then we can send SQL queries, SQL commands to the MySQL table and make it all work. So let's initiate the MySQL connection here. Let's create that bridge. So also the thing is that connections are a little volatile, or they could easily fail. So let's say our server is down, the MySQL server, and hence you're not able to connect. So that's a common error. It happens all the time. So it doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, if you have a pathetic MySQL server, then yeah, that might happen. So what Java recommends, or what Java enforces, is that you have to create connections inside something called try-catch blocks. So I'll just make that quickly. What this is that what try-catch block is that this whatever code we write inside the try block. So if I write some code here, this will run inside the try block, and if there is any line where an error is encountered, we immediately go into the catch block, and whatever code is in the catch block, that gets run. So it's something like an error handling mechanism. So I hope that is sort of clear. So if there is an error in the try block, we immediately go to the catch block instead of like throwing an error. So we can handle it instead of the application balking and being like, I'm not going to work anymore. We instead have this little mechanism which prevents stuff like that from happening. So we have control here instead of the application crashing and whatnot. So yeah, let's write code. Let's create the connection. Connection con is equal to driver manager. All of this is there in the GitHub repo, as I've mentioned earlier. So I'll type this all up quickly because we're a little less on time. So get connection adbc MySQL / localhost / test, and test here is the database. We created a test database, if you all remember, use test. You would have typed in a create database test up here as well. So yeah, we are using that database, the test database. And to log into the MySQL, we also need to provide MySQL a username and a password. So we're going to log in as the root user, and we're going to provide the password. So on my computer, it's 1234. On your computer, it might be something different. If you all have followed my instructions, the installation instructions, and you've either put in 1234 or 12345678. So one of them. So anyway, put that 1234 or whatever you have as the MySQL password. And now this line is giving an error. Why on earth? So we need to add an import for java.sql.connection. So yeah, this doesn't come in by default. So we need to add an import. So we'll go upstairs and we'll add an import. I'm surprised that this is already here, but yeah, so what we are going to import is import java.sql.star. What this does is it imports all the libraries present inside the java.sql package. So that will import things like the connection class, and there's another class which will be using something called the prepared statement class, the result set class, 3 or 4 classes which are important while connecting to MySQL from a Java application. So yeah, this line is not giving an error anymore, and that's amazing. So now the connection is established. This will help in establishing the connection. Now, next up, we are going to write the SQL query, which is going to insert this username, password, and name. So let's just have a quick look at what we wrote earlier. We wrote this little command here. Insert into user values, the username, password, and the name. So let's do the exact same thing. We're going to create a string. And let's call the string as SQL. And it's going to be insert into user values. And the values, and I'm not going to hard code the values because they are like dynamic. I mean, since they are variables. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put 3 question marks and then put a semicolon at the end. And why I'm putting a semicolon at the end? That's because MySQL sort of demands a semicolon at the end. Like you can see here, that's a semicolon. So that semicolon at the end, and then a semicolon for the Java line, because statements in Java also need semicolons, as you can see. So final semicolon at the end, and that's our string SQL. And in place of these question marks, we are going to put these variables. So let's see how that's done. So the next thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called a prepared statement. Now, what on earth is a prepared statement? So first of all, what this connection is? So a connection is basically that the bridge between the Java application and the MySQL database. So that's what a connection is. And now if you want to send SQL commands or queries to MySQL from the application, you're going to have to send like a car across that bridge. You're going to have to send statements across that bridge. So that's what a prepared statement is. Prepared statement. So prepared statement is essentially that car or that vehicle which travels up, between, it, loads your query and it goes to MySQL from the Java application. So that's what a prepared statement is. So prepared statement PSTMT is equal to con.prepare statement. In brackets, we'll put SQL. It makes sense to memorize this, but since this is a beginner thing, if you all are interested, you all can totally go and read the Java documentation on this. But yeah, so what we're doing here is we are creating that vehicle by using the bridge, and we are telling that load the SQL string into the vehicle. So the passenger essentially is the string SQL, and the car is the prepared statement, and the bridge is the connection, and the 2 endpoints are the Java application and the MySQL database. So yeah, the car is now loaded, but now the car has unknown passengers. Okay, it doesn't know what these question marks are. So we need to fill in those question marks. The way we'll do that is, let me just write the code and then I'll explain. What's going on here? We are what we are saying here is that for the inside the vehicle, put the first passenger, put the first unknown passenger, this question mark over here, as the username, which is, this username, which we have obtained up here. So we'll do the same thing for, I guess you can figure out what I'm going to do next. 2, password, semicolon, stmt, set string, name. So all the passengers are now identified. The question marks are now replaced by the actual username, password, and name. And now at this point, the car is ready to travel across the bridge. So let's do that. PSTMT.execute update. So what this does is, okay, it executes it sends the car across the bridge, but in a more formal sense, it executes the thing which we were, this insert command. And we've used something called execute update. So what we're doing using the insert command is we're updating the MySQL database, right? We are not changing the structure. We are, not structure, what am I saying? We're not changing the, what do you say? We don't want to see the data. We want to alter the data. We want to change the data. So that's why we want to update the data in a more, along the line of execute update. We want to update the data. We want to insert, or like let's say we had an update query, then we'd again use execute update. Let's say we had something like delete from user, then we'd again use the execute update. But let's say we had something like a select star from user where we wanted to see what's inside the table. Then we'd use something called execute query, which is something we'll be seeing shortly. So yeah, that's what this execute update does. It sends the car across the bridge. And so yeah, once the car is sent, if there are no errors, like let's say there are errors, okay. I mean, it may so happen that the car falls off the bridge. I don't know. I mean, something could happen. Like it may so happen that I don't know. Suddenly the bridge breaks down, which may happen when the server goes down or something of that sort. Then this line wouldn't execute. I mean, an error would be thrown and we'd go into the catch block. So yeah, we'll look at the catch block as well in a second. But let's say this executed nicely, then we'll just tell the user that, hey, congratulations, your record went to the table and you are now a verified account holder inside the user table. So let's display a little message which says that, like upon the car reaching the other side. Option pane dot show message dialog null comma congrats, you account created successful. Nice. So what's going on here? Okay. So an import has been automatically added when I think I hit enter, but I think you might have to type this in case that doesn't happen. So we have imported the J option pane class, or the library rather. So what J option pane does is it provides us with these little functions which enable us to display messages or confirmation dialogues or even option dialogues, which have things like yes, no, cancel, or okay, cancel. So what a message dialog will show is a little a pop-up which says okay, and I think it just displays okay. I mean, it either does that or it shows okay, cancel. Anyway, so that's what this J option pane is. So it'll show this little message. Congrats, account created successfully. And once this happens, once we have created an account, what we'd ideally do is, like, when I click sign up and it shows me a little pop-up saying congratulations, then I should go back to this frame, go back to the J frame. So we'll write that part of the code as well. Sign up frame dot dispose this dot set visible. This is, as you can see, this is rather similar to this, but in reverse, I guess. So over there on the J button 1, what we were doing was we were getting rid of the this frame and going to sign up frame. Here we are getting rid of the sign up frame and we are going to the this frame. So that's what the sign up button is supposed to do. If you create an account, if your account gets created successfully, you will be redirected to the this frame. That makes sense. And now, as for this catch exception E, so let's say something goes wrong. Let's say this connection doesn't get established, or somewhere in this try block, let's say an error occurs. Then we go into this catch block, and what we're going to do in this catch block is we are going to display the error. So, and how will we display the error? How will we show the user that, hey, this is what happened? We're again going to use the J option pane, because J option panes are amazing. Okay, they are like these amazing little pop-ups which I'm going to show you in a short while. So let's do that. J option pane dot show message dialog null comma e dot get message. What's this? Now, what's e? E is this little parameter right here, exception e. So e is a variable of the exception class. You don't need to know what an exception class is, but essentially it's like a physical form of the error which happened while traversing through the try block. So what we're doing is we want to show the message which is contained in that in E. So instead of printing E directly, we are extracting the message out of it, because I mean there are a few other components in E. I mean, I think you could even have a look at that. E dot. You could get the class of the message. You could get the cause of the message. You could get the something called a stack trace. Like I wonder if you've ever used Python. I mean, you get like in this file this happened and in this file that happened. So you have a huge, what do you say? So you could even do that. You could print the stack, the trace. But what we're going to do is we're just going to get the message of the error and display that. So that's all for the for the sign up button, and let's try signing up. Let's save. Let's run. Let's go to run file, and let's click sign up, and let's enter a username. So Cody, the HackVerse 2.0 mascot, is now going to try creating an account. He's entered Cody as the username. Password is going to be simply ABCD, and name is just going to be Cody. And let's try signing up. Let's see what happens. So when I click sign up, look at this little message. So this is what I call a J option pane. This is what a J option pane is, and particularly this is a show message dialog. So in the show message, so in a message dialog, we have just an OK button. So in other things like, let's say, a confirm dialog or an option dialog, you'd have other things like, OK cancel or yes no cancel. But yeah, in a message dialog, we just have OK. And check out this error message. No suitable driver found for all of this. What this means is that we don't have, what can I say? There is a little API required for connecting the Java application to MySQL. I wonder if you all know what an API is, but anyway, API is basically, it's in some sense the bridge or something which, it's like an enabler. It helps us to connect the Java application to MySQL. So, okay. So let's solve this error. So let's just click OK, and let's fix the error. And the reason why that error occurred is because this line wasn't able to run, because when we tried to run this line, due to the absence of the very bridge, or due to the absence of the API, due to the absence of the literal enabler of the connection, this line must have given an error, and we ended up in the catch block, and we displayed the message. e.get message displayed us the little message which said no suitable driver found. So we need to add the driver. So let's add the driver. Let's go to libraries over here and right click the libraries and click add library, and go down till you see something, see this MySQL JDBC driver. So this is what we need. The JDBC API is what we are using for connecting, to act as like a communicator between the Java application and the MySQL database. So we need to add this library. So add the library, and if you expand the libraries tab, you will be able to see that it's now present. MySQL JDBC driver is now there in our application. And now if you try to run, okay, so I'll have to go back to the code file, and now I'll click run file, sign up, and let's try signing Cody up. Cody, password is ABCD, and the name is Cody. Sign up. Congratulations, account created successfully. Okay, and now we've been redirected to the dashboard, and that all makes sense. If you see here, we sent the car across, and the update happened because we didn't receive an error, so we are sure the update happened. And so the J option pane was displayed, which congratulated us, and it disposed the sign up frame because we're now no longer on the sign up frame. We're now on the on this frame, the main frame or the landing page. So yeah, all of this works. Thank God. Now let's see if all of this has been reflected in MySQL as well. So let's do a little select star from user. As you can see, Cody as a record has been added to the table, and now is a registered user of our amazing application. So okay, so that works. Now let's now we need to start with the login. This button, this is the button which we need to write code for. So let's now do that a little quicker, because I think now you all have a good idea of how to go around the place. So let's quickly go to the login frame, design this container, write code for this login button. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click the login button, double click. Oh my God, double click it again. Here we are. And let's write the code here for the login button. Let's do that quickly. First things first, obviously on the login button, the first thing which we need to do is we need to get the username and the password. So let's do that quickly. What is the username? The username is present in JText field 3. So let's remember that. And the password is present in JPassword field 2. So let's remember that as well. So let's get them into string variables in exactly the same manner as what we've done up here. So string username is equal to jtext field 3 dot get text. And for anyone who's joining in later on, I might not repeat it again, but yeah, all of this code is available in a GitHub repository. The link can be found in the description. Please check that out in case you joined a little later on. So yeah, new string. We're following the exact same thing as we've done up here. You know what? I'll just copy this up. JPassword field 1, paste it here. And since we are getting the text from JPassword field 2, so I'll set that as that. And now the next thing which we need to do is we need to authenticate this user. Like once we have the username and password, we need to see if this combination of username and password is correct. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask MySQL, like I'm going to send a little query to MySQL asking that, okay, so for this username, what is the actual password? So we'll look at the query for that in a bit. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to ask MySQL about the password, and MySQL is going to respond with the password, and then we are going to compare that password with this password. And for that matter, let's call this password as the entered password. So we know that this is a different kind of password. So this is the entered password, and we'll get the actual password, and then we'll compare. So yeah, let's begin with the catch blocks, obviously, because we need to connect with MySQL at this point. And we're going to catch exception E. And we have the exact same. Let's just copy this line up. The option pane.show message dialog. Null comma e.get message. We're going to display the error message if we get any such error messages. And we need to create a connection again upon clicking the login button. So we're going to copy this line up again. Copy. Paste right there. The connection, the bridge is created. Now we need the vehicle. So the vehicle is going to be, we're going to create a prepared statement, but for the prepared statement, we need the string SQL. We need the actual query. So let's write the query. So this query is string SQL is equal to select password from user, where username is equal to question mark, semicolon, semicolon. Now let's look at this for maybe half a minute. What's going on here? We are selecting and viewing the password from the user table for an account who has the username as the one which we are going to provide in this question mark right here. So our ultimate query is going to look something like, select password from user where username is equal to Cody. This is what's going to, this is the actual MySQL query which we're going to send in. So let's try that in MySQL. Select password from user where username equal to Cody, and this should give me ABCD. And now I think I should have kept a different password, because now one may say that, what on earth, both passwords are same. So what if it's displaying this? But believe in what I'm saying at this point, that it's going to return as Cody's password, and indeed it returns as ABCD. So when we are trying to get the password from the user table where the username is Cody, it's giving us the password as ABCD, and that makes sense. Okay, so this is the string SQL. And in place of the question mark, we need to identify the unknown passenger. So first of all, let's create the car. Prepared statement p stmt is equal to con dot prepare statement. And in brackets, I'm going to put a semicolon at the end. And I'm going to identify the passengers now. I'm going to find what this question mark is. So p stmt dot set string 1 comma username. So the first passenger, the first question mark, and the only question mark in this case is the username. So the query will ultimately look like select password from user where username is equal to this username with this variable. Okay. So now we've identified the passenger. Time to send the car across the bridge to MySQL. So p stmt dot what execute query. And now at this point, check this out. We're now executing a query instead of doing something like an execute update. And why did we do that? That's because this was an insert command, and this is a select command. So selecting data is basically viewing the data or obtaining the data for viewing. While on the other hand, inserting, updating, or deleting is what we call as updating the data inside the table. So for insert, we use execute update, and for select, we are using execute query. So yeah, the car has been sent across. The thing is that MySQL is actually going to respond to this query, and that's because this is a query. This is not an update. If it was an update, MySQL doesn't really need to respond with anything. For queries, MySQL will respond with the data which is queried for. So we're going to obtain the data into something called a result set, RS. So RS is a result set object. I mean, it's a variable of the result set class. I don't think you need to worry about what that is, but RS is essentially the Java form of a table, I think, in some sense. So result set also has columns and rows and all that. So it's quite similar to like when we execute this query, this is exactly what's going to be returned back to the result set. It's going to have the password column and it's going to have one row in the result set, which is going to contain ABCD. So, so yeah, that's what we are going to obtain after executing the query. We are going to obtain the password from the table where the username is Cody or where the username is whatever has been entered. And that's obtained into RS. Now I'll touch upon just a small bit of theory. Give me another second. Okay. So now how RS works is that RS is, I mean, it looks like, as I said, it looks like this. It has a column. I mean, it has a few columns. I mean, if it was like a bigger table, let's say I was running a select star query instead of a select password. If I were running a select star query, I would have all three of these columns and two rows, like this first row and the second row. And so this entire thing would be in the result set. Now, the point I wish to raise here is that the way result set works is that result set has something called a pointer. I don't know if you all know what a pointer is, but it's in some sense it's no, what's a pointer? I mean, it basically wait, how do I describe a pointer? Perhaps a cursor. So like my cursor right now is like before the first row. Now it's on the first row. Now my cursor is on the second row. So that's what the result set cursor is. Okay. So at the beginning, so when we obtain the result set, when we get it from the as an output from MySQL, we're going to get into result set, and the result set pointer or the result set cursor is going to be one row above the first row. So it's going to be right here, I mean, in this place, like just above the the first row. But in this example, it will be somewhere over here. It's not going to be on ABCD. It's going to be up here. Okay, so now since that's out of the way, let's continue. Now this next bit of code I'll quickly write and then I'll explain. If rs.first else. Okay, so what's going on here? So now what this line does is that if rs.first is a thing, so if there is a first row in rs, now what do I mean by is there a first row? So now what may happen is that the user might enter a username which does not exist in the database. Okay, so like let's say, I mean, right now there is only Manoj Trivedi and Cody. So now what if I added something like Bob? Okay, so now Bob is not there in the table. So MySQL will not return any rows. I mean, it will probably return the columns, but it's not going to return any rows. So the result set is going to be empty. I mean, in terms of rows. So there will not be a first row. I mean, I hope that makes sense. There will not be a first row. So if there is not a first row, this thing, rs.first, that's going to return false, and we are going to go into the else clause. But in case there is indeed a first row, then we'll go ahead and say that, yeah, okay, thank God the user actually exists. And then we'll continue with the password checking. So right now, let's say the user does not exist. So else user does, I mean here user does not exist. Rather, the username does not exist. In this scenario, we're just going to tell the user that, hey, user, you messed up and check your username because it doesn't exist in our database. So null, comma, username does not exist. Please try again with an exclamation mark. Exclamation mark is pretty important. And yeah, here we are. So that's what we are going to display in case the username doesn't exist. And now in case it does exist, then we'll go ahead and compare the passwords. So now how will we compare the passwords? So first of all, we have an rs.first. And what rs.first does is it brings the rs cursor. So if you remember, I was talking about the rs cursor a while ago, that rs is initially pointing to the the 0th row or the row before the first row. So what rs.first does is it initially, it tries to bring the cursor to the actual first row. If that first row isn't there, then it returns false. Else it brings the cursor to this first row. So now let's say this rs.first was successful. So this rs.first will bring the cursor to the first row. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so it's now on the first row. It's on this row, this password, the first row, in case the username exists. First row. Okay. So now I'm going to obtain this password. This thing right here, this first string, this ABCD, I'm going to get that. And how I'm going to get that, let's have a look. String actual password is equal to rs.getString, and in double quotes, I'm going to write password. Now, what on earth is this? So what I'm doing here is I am getting the string from wherever rs is pointing right now. So right now rs is pointing to the first row. As I said, rs.first points to the first row. So it's pointing to the first row here, this row. And so it's bringing, so rs.first brings the pointer to the first row. I am getting the string from the first row. And for which column? I'm getting the string for the password column. As you can see, this password column is there. But had I done something like select star, there'd be more columns. If I wanted to get the username, I'd do a rs.getString username. But yeah, right now I just need to get the string from the password column. So I'm doing that, rs.getString password. And that gets ABCD from the password column, and it puts it into the actual password string, into the string actual password. And now we are going to compare these two. We are going to compare the entered password with the actual password. And if they are both equal, then we are going to congratulate the user again and log the user in. So let's do that. And now the interesting thing is that we cannot use something like an equal to something which probably exists in C or C++. So we're not going to do something like, if entered password equal to actual password. Although this makes sense, although this is not giving an error, what actually is happening here is that it's comparing whether or not the entered password object, whether or not the entered password string itself, like the very variable, whether it's same as the actual password object or the actual password variable. Basically, it's not comparing the value inside them. It's literally comparing whether or not the two variable boxes are the same. So, and that'll always be untrue because, we declared them differently. So, so we don't use this. Okay. So please remember to not compare strings using equal to unless that's your intention, unless you actually for some reason want to compare whether the two objects are the same. So instead what we are going to do is we are going to use something called the equals method. And if entered password dot equals the actual password, then we are going to log the user in, log in. Otherwise, we're going to tell the user that your password is incorrect. So let's put in a JOption pane.show message dialog in there, copy and paste. Incorrect password. Please try again. Okay, so that's the message which is going to be displayed in case the entered password is not equal to the actual password. But in case it is equal to the actual password, then we log in. Now, how do we log in? Pretty simple. We're obviously going to go to the dashboard in the exact same way as we were doing all of this. We're going to dispose the current frame. I mean, we're going to dispose the login frame, and we are going to make the dashboard visible by using the set visible method. So let's do that. Login frame dot dispose and dashboard dot set visible true, and obviously congratulate the user for logging in. Copy and paste. Okay, instead of just congratulating, we're just going to tell the user that he or she has logged in. Okay, that's good. I think let's save the file. I think we're more or less done here. I think the code is looking good, and let's run. It's almost an hour and a half, so we are reaching time, but yeah, let's try logging in. So here we need to enter a username. So let's first of all, let's try what happens if we enter the wrong username. Let's enter Cody's with an extra S in the end. And just to verify, we have only 2 users at the minute. We have Trivedi and Cody. So Cody is a non-existent user, and let's enter any random password. Let's say ABCDE and log in. Username does not exist. Please try again. Makes sense. Okay, I forgot my username. I entered the wrong username. Now I think it's correct, but at this point the password is wrong. Let's try logging in. Incorrect password. Please try again. Oh no. Let's enter the right password now. Hopefully this will work. Okay. Confirmation. Login. Logged in, and we've reached the dashboard. And it's displaying hello. And so yeah, that's that's the application in a nutshell, I think. So that's the entire sign up login application. And now what? So but now at this point we have to, if you want to run it, then you have to go to run file, and that's that doesn't sound like an app. That sounds like more like a running a file. So instead, what we are going to do is we are going to create an actual app out of this. And the way we are going to do that is we are going to go to clean and build. So if you didn't see that, I went to run, go to clean and build project, click that, and something is going on in the output window. You can see here that to run this application from the command line, you enter this. So if we were to copy this line here and paste it in command prompt, it would ideally run the the application, but we need to actually visually see the application. Okay, so let's actually go to this location and see what the app, like the icon of the app, looks like. So yeah, till there, I think copy, go in the Explorer to the right place. Yeah, this thing right here, this jar file, this is like the exe file in some sense for Java files. Okay, so this is what we would double click to run. But then the actual app would look like, you'd zip up this dist file. This dist stands for distribution. So what you'd do is you'd right click and send to zipped file. So this would zip up the file, and then you could distribute that. So I'm sure you've seen that in a lot of games. So the way games are distributed is you have a zipped file, you extract those files, and then you find the executable file. You find the exe file inside the list of files. So analog list, in that manner, you'd have to double click the dist file after unzipping it, and then this is the executable which will be run. So if I were to double click this right now, it actually won't run because of a little thing which we have to change. So give me a second. So what we have to do here now at this point, we are literally at the last step. So we go to file. No, we don't go to file. What am I doing? So to make this jar file run, to make the exe run, we need to carry out a final set of steps. So what we do, what we have to do at this point is we have to right click the projects node. The simple login app project node. Go to properties. So click properties, and again, give me a second here. So yeah, in the project properties, we will go to this run option over here, run. And in here, we have this main class field as empty. So we need to actually fill this up. Otherwise, it won't run. So the way we do that is we'll just click browse, and we'll select this main class, which is the simple login app GUI, which is if you scroll up here, I'll just show that this thing, this class up here. For people who know what object-oriented programming is, this might be making a bit of sense. That simple login app GUI is like the JFrame form class, which is extending Java x.string.frame, which is the JFrame class. But anyway, we don't need to know what all of that is at the minute, since this is a basic session. So yeah, we right-click projects, go to properties, go to the run, and then for the main class, click browse. Select this and select this as the main class. Just select. So now the main class field is all filled up, and we now just need to click OK. And now the main class field is set, and now we just need to clean and build the project again. So go to run, clean and build. The output window should be opening up any second now. And now to run this application, we just need to go to this location again. So for some reason, I inadvertently closed the file explorer, but anyway, so this is the jar file. And now if all goes well, if we have good luck, then this should work. This should work like an application. Let's see, let's double click. And wonderful. So yeah, this works as a standalone application. So now at this point, we don't need the NetBeans ID working in the background. Okay, we can totally close this and just double click this exe file, and we'd have this little have the app running. So now let's quickly sign up as Bob from Alice and Bob. I hope you know what that is. Cryptography 101. Anyway, so yeah, let's sign up as Bob. Account created successfully. Let's log in as Bob again. Password ABCD. Login. We've logged in. Wonderful. Let's verify in MySQL. Select star from user. Bob is indeed a user. He has been signed up. Sign up login app is successful. And for those who have followed me throughout this tutorial, congratulations on following this tutorial, because I think I went through this a little quickly. But in any case, I'll repeat this once again. Please check the description. It has the code. You can see that. And this YouTube video will always be there for later. I mean, if you want to, view this again. So yeah, I think that's all for this session. And thank you everybody who, joined to learn a bit about desktop application development using Java and MySQL. And I hope you all will use this someday, somewhere, to create a quick prototype for maybe a website or a bigger application for a client. Okay, so, okay.
Thank you, Manas. I'm sure they'll get to use it soon for like the hackathon coming up. So, guys, if you have any comments, any questions, you can put up in the comment section, and Manas is here to address them for you. Yeah. Also, do check out our YouTube. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Twitter, social media handles for more updates about any of upcoming workshops, technical talks, and updates about the hackathon. Any of that. So I don't see any comments right now, so I think we're ready to wind up.
So anyway, I mean, just to mention, like, you can always, like, in case you have any doubts at any point about all of this, you can contact me at manasdtrivedi@gmail.com and send me your queries over there. And so, I mean, for people who are viewing this video later on, or even viewers currently who are here, if you ever have any doubts, please let me know on my email. Okay, so yeah, I think we can wind up at this point. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Do follow our social media handles for more updates, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.